What's up guys, I'm going to finally cover a few awakening topic guides, and for this video I'll be going over most of the awakening cancels, including the ones in pre-awakening. So yeah, let's get started. First off, we have our violation cancels. There's two ways you can start violation. The first one is with Shift W LMB into W RMB. The other way is holding down RMB to drop your block, then immediately press W for violation. If you have your scythe block on a mouse button, you can use your mouse button for block as well. And lastly, you can shorten your violation by clicking LMB. This allows you to finish the full animation and go straight into the chop. Another way you can go into violation is out of shadow leap, by clicking LMB in mid animation, then holding W RMB for violation. If you Midnight Stinger, immediately hold W, C, and RMB to flow into violation. And if you are in pre-awakening, you can hold down W and RMB, and it will flow into Russian Crow right into violation. If you activate Dark Flame's full animation, right at the end you can hold W, C, and RMB to flow into violation right after. And last cancel into violation will be out of iframe, so you'll start off in pre-awakening and iframe forward or back and hold W, C, and RMB. The only way to do it left and right after the iframe is if you hold S and C, go into the block, then hold W RMB right after. If you're in awakening, you can actually iframe any direction and hold RMB to go into a block, then W to flow into violation. Now this isn't a cancel, but a very important part of violation. After casting violation, you can hold LMB and RMB to consume 10 fragments and cast another violation in return. That's going to be your signature move during PvE. Last thing to note is you can always iframe out of violation if needed. Next is the Shadow Leap cancel. The only way I know of that you can cancel out of Shadow Leap is with Midnight Stinger, Shift and LMB, and Scythe Training LMB. Anytime you use Shadow Leap, anytime before the animation finishes, you can use Midnight Stinger to get out of Shadow Leap into other abilities. With the Scythe Training, anytime you click LMB during Shadow Leap, it takes you out of it. Then you can proceed with any ability after. A good example of this is W and F for Shadow Leap, then LMB to Scythe Attack, getting you out of Shadow Leap's animation, then immediately after LMB just press anything else to flow with you. Here I just press my mouse button to iframe forward. A shortcut I have for WW, and I flow nitro right after. Next is C swapping. There's tons of ways to transition between awakening and pre-awakening, but the ones dealing with your C key and few variants of it, we have the most popular C swap, the S and C swap. If you are in pre-awakening and you hold S and C, this will not only take you into awakening, but immediately takes you into the block, which is very good and a safe choice for a C swap. Another way is either with W, A, or D with C for different variants of the swap. Another interesting way is if you shift and W for a sprint, then hold C, it does a dashed C swap. Another thing people like to do after fights is Flow of Darkness into C swap, or a Sinister Shadow into C swap. So you can either D and LMB into C, or D and RMB into C. Those two you can do it as fast as you want, as long as you get the pre-buff they give you. You can also iframe any direction and hold C for the last variance of C swap. All of these swaps can work in reverse from awakening to pre-awakening as well. Next two are just shortcuts that I recommend for awakening sort that involve two mouse buttons. First one is your WW iframe by going into your settings, then into interface and action hotkeys. Scroll all the way down until you see evasion WW. Bind that to a mouse button of your choice and you can now iframe forward with ease. The other one is for your scythe block. You'll go into the settings, then quick slot hotkeys and choose any of these quick slots to be your second mouse button. I choose to put my Carson's protection on slot 8, so that's where I have it to set my second mouse button. And now I can spam it to fully join the scythe blaze. Then we have the turn back / cancels. The most popular one is the iframe back / cancel. Iframe in any direction and hold S and RB. Another way is through the C swap mechanic. Anytime you W, A, or D, and C for C swap, you can hold S and RB to quick cast /. Another way you can do it, if you hold Shift and W, then spacebar to jump, you can hold S and RB to cast / as well. Next is the flow nitro cancels. This one I couldn't explain to you why this works, but it just does. When you iframe an awakening, it has a 2-second cooldown with a lingering frontal. However, after you iframe, if you use Sinister Omen used in your hotbar, it for some reason allows you to iframe once again, even though it's on cooldown and does not affect the timer. Same applies to Dark Trade. So you can use those two as legitimate tactics to double iframe that way, or combine those two to iframe a fuck ton in Awakening. Only downside is Sinister Omen and Dark Trade are unsafe abilities, so activate them and iframe quickly to close the opening gap. Here's what happens if you were to combine those two. Next is the Blades of Darkness cancels. First variant of these cancels are through the C swap mechanic. Anytime you use W, A, or D into C, you have to immediately shift an RB to quick cast blades. The tricky thing about blade cancels is the timing has to be super specific, and if you do it too quick or too fast, you'll mess it up and do the normal Blades of Darkness. The best way to practice these blades is to test the feel of the timing and copy the same timing as I do with my inputs. Another way to cancel is through side training, A or D LMB into Shift RMB. This one is arguably the hardest one to get down consistently, so give yourself time to master this one before giving up. The next one is the easiest way to pull off blades consistently. All you have to do is iframe any direction in Awakening and hold Shift and RB to cast it. Another interesting way to quick cast blades is if you hold Shift W to run in pre-awakening, then hold C to dash swap into Awakening. Then right after the swap, you hold Shift RB to cast blades. And since Blades of Darkness is the first part, Cry of Darkness is the second part where you hold Shift and space to confirm your target and throw it. So once you got all these cancels down, you should be able to flow with Cry of Darkness right after each blaze and just hold Shift and space. Next we have Flow Rushing Crow. With this one, you can stop it mid-animation with Midnight Stinger or an iframe at any point of the animation. And then for the Grim Reaper cancels, one thing to mention and remember with Grim Reaper is that you can always iframe during the charge and still actually hold it. As long as you're constantly iframing, it's not going to force you to use your Grim Reaper. So if you want to stall it out, you can actually just hold Grim and constantly iframe any direction. Another cancel you can do with Grim Reaper is actually towards the end when it does the final animation, you can actually just Midnight Stinger out of it. So that way you're not stuck in the full animation. This is what some people do to actually get out of Grim Reaper's judgment quickly. So this is just one way you can do it. Then we have pre-awakening cancels, starting off with Scattering Eruption cancel. For this one you need Scattering Shadow, Shadow Eruption, and Midnight Stinger. So you'll activate Midnight Stinger with Shift LB, then hold Shift and F to flow Scattering Shadow with Shadow Eruption. Next is the Ultimate Shadow Eruption cancel. This one isn't really a cancel but uncommonly used ability in Awakening's kit. Anytime you activate Shadow Eruption, hold L and B to flow into Ultimate Shadow Eruption. Then for the Absolute Shadow Eruption, you can quick cast this ability by iframing either left, right, or backwards, then hold Shift and F for a quick Shadow Eruption. On top of that, you can iframe immediately after Shadow Eruption. However, if you do it too quick, you'll literally cancel the ability itself, so be mindful of how quickly you iframe after. You can also press D or A into L and B, then hold Shift and F for a quick Shadow Eruption as well. Last way to cancel is by pressing F, then hold Shift and F for a quick Shadow Eruption. Next is the Abyssal Flame cancel. Unlike Succession, the only way to cancel this ability is to iframe backwards and hold L and B and RB. Any other direction will not give you the fully charged shot. Next is the Bloody Calamity cancels. In Pre-Awakening, you can cast them by iframing either left or right and hold space to activate it. And if you're in Awakening, you can iframe any direction and hold space to activate it as well. Next is the Dark Flame iframe cancel. By going into Dark Flame with S, L, and B, R, and B, you can iframe using your mouse button during the mid-animation of Dark Flame. Once you get the timing down, it'll come to you naturally. Now for Dream of Doom cancels, you can always iframe out of it if needed, as well as cancel out of it with Crowflare or Midnight Stinger if you have the ultimate versions. Yeah, that covers just about a grand majority of your Awakening cancels out there. There's going to be a few that I missed, but that's fine. Hopefully I demonstrated and showed you how to pull these cancels off. And as always, let me know if you guys have any questions down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.